$50,000 pickups are being dumped for $12,000. The market is crashing so hard that trucks worth more than most people's yearly salary are now selling for used car prices. And what is causing this collapse is about to get much worse. Picture brand new F-150s, Silverados, and Rams that dealers couldn't keep on lots just months ago now sitting abandoned in massive overflow parking lots, their prices slashed by 75% or more. Dealerships are panic selling, auctions are flooded with inventory, and trucks that were impossible to find are now begging for buyers at prices that seem too good to be true. But here is the terrifying twist that is sending shockwaves through the auto industry. This is not just about overpriced trucks or changing consumer habits. There is a hidden financial crisis brewing. A perfect storm of repo rates skyrocketing, loan defaults exploding, and a secret factor that is making certain trucks completely worthless overnight, while others somehow hold their value. We will reveal which pickup brands are getting destroyed, the one hidden trigger that decides if your truck survives or dies, and why some $50,000 trucks are now worth less than a 10-year-old sedan. Is this your chance to score the deal of a lifetime, or a warning that the entire truck market is about to implode and take the economy with it? Mike Torres still remembers the first time he saw the truck. A 2022 Ford F-250 gleamed under the dealership lights, the diesel engine rumbling, chrome trim catching every bit of the Texas sun. For years, trucks like this were more than vehicles. They were a sign you'd made it. Contractors, ranchers, even suburban dads lined up to pay sticker price, sometimes more. Mike had spent months saving, watching prices climb higher, hearing stories of friends waiting 6 months or more for their orders to arrive. When his dealer called, he didn't hesitate. The sticker read $68,000. With taxes and fees, it was almost $74,000 out the door. Mike's hands shook as he signed the papers. The monthly payment, $1,178, was more than his first mortgage, but business was booming. Oilfield contracts meant steady work, and every job needed a truck that could haul, tow, and impress clients. He justified the cost the way so many did. Trucks hold their value, he told himself. It was an investment. He would drive it for years, and if he ever needed to sell, he would get most of his money back. The salesman nodded, promising that F-250s were impossible to keep on the lot, that resale values were bulletproof, that Mike was making the smart choice. For a moment, it felt true. The first few months were good. Every morning, Mike climbed into the cab, coffee in hand, feeling the quiet pride that comes with owning something new and expensive. The truck became part of his identity. Neighbors asked to look under the hood. Co-workers joked about who would get to borrow it for weekend projects. Even his kids bragged about their dad's new diesel. But the numbers never left his mind. $1,178 every month, automatic withdrawal from his account. Insurance, registration, maintenance, each bill a reminder that the dream truck came at a price. Like thousands of others across the country, Mike stretched his budget as far as it would go, betting that the good times would last. He wasn't alone. In 2024, the average full-size pickup cost $62,869, with luxury models soaring past $80,000. Dealers offered loans up to 84 months, sometimes with interest rates above 7%. Buyers signed, hoping their work would stay steady, that gas would not spike, that demand for trucks would never fade. For a while, it worked. Trucks still symbolized security, success, and a little bit of freedom. Mike drove his F-250 to job sites, church on Sundays, and family barbecues. He believed, like so many others, that the value was real, the investment safe. But beneath the surface, the numbers were starting to shift. The pipeline of work that had always seemed endless began to thin. And with each passing month, The weight of that $1,178 payment grew heavier. The dream that once felt so solid was about to be tested in ways Mike, and thousands like him, never saw coming. By the winter of 2024, the numbers caught up to Mike. The oil field jobs that once filled his calendar vanished as contracts dried up across Texas. He missed a payment in January. At first it felt like a small slip, something he could fix if work picked up, or if he cut back somewhere else. But the calls from Alley Financial started almost immediately. First reminders, then warnings, then daily pressure. Each conversation chipped away at the hope that things would turn around. February brought no new jobs, and no way to make the $1,178 payment. Mike watched his savings drain, bill by bill, until there was nothing left but the truck in the driveway and a growing sense of dread. He tried to sell it, but the offers were humiliating. One dealer quoted $18,000, another just $14,000. Trucks that once seemed untouchable had become a liability overnight. By March, 3 payments behind, the reality set in. Mike's story became a statistic in a wave of defaults sweeping the country. Across the U.S., subprime auto loan delinquencies spiked past 5.5%, the highest since the last recession. Repossession agents worked overtime. In Atlanta, repo drivers reported taking a dozen pickups a night from small business owners and tradesmen like Mike. The lenders didn't care about the stories, just the numbers on a spreadsheet. One night, without warning, the F-250 disappeared from his driveway. Mike woke up, looked outside, and saw only tire tracks in the frost. He called the police, then the lender, who confirmed what he already knew. The truck was gone, hauled off to a holding lot, then shipped to auction, where it would join hundreds of others lined up for the highest bidder. At the Mannheim auction in April, the numbers were brutal. Over 1,200 pickups flooded the block in a single day, many just like Mike's, barely used, loaded with options, and now worthless to the people who needed them most. Reserve prices dropped mid-auction as bidding stalled. Some 2022 Rams, once sold for as much as $70,000, went for $17,000 or less. Silverados with every feature imaginable sold for $12,000. Dealers walked out early, stunned by the carnage. One auctioneer said prices this week are like nothing I ever seen. It is a bloodbath. When Mike finally got the paperwork, the numbers didn't feel real. His $68,000 truck, which had cost more than his house 6 years earlier, brought just $12,000 at sale. The rest, tens of thousands, was still on his loan balance. He said that truck was worth more than his house 6 years ago. Now, he can't even buy a used Camry instead. For Mike, the loss wasn't just money. It was pride, work, and a sense of belonging, gone in a matter of months. For thousands across the country, the same story played out in different driveways, each missed payment turning a symbol of success into a burden nobody wanted. The pain rippled outward, from families to dealers to the banks holding the loans, exposing just how fragile the promise of value had become. $50K pickups are being dumped for $12K. The market is crashing so hard that trucks worth more than most people's yearly salary are now selling for used car prices, and what's causing this collapse is about to get much worse. Sticker shock. Sticker prices on new pickups have always been high, but the gap between what trucks cost and what Americans earn has never been wider. In 2024, the average full-size pickup sold for $62,869. That is a 60% jump from a decade earlier, while average household income rose just 25% over the same period. A loaded diesel or luxury trim now hits $80,000 or more, often costing as much as a starter home in many parts of the country. Even mainstream models, once within reach for working families, have drifted out of the middle class's grasp. Status symbols. For years, automakers leaned into this trend, stuffing trucks with leather, advanced technology, and premium badges. The Ford F-Series, Chevy Silverado, and Ram 1500 became not just workhorses, but status symbols. vehicles that signaled success on the job site and in the driveway. Dealers had no trouble moving inventory. In the early 2020s, supply chain chaos and chip shortages pushed prices even higher, turning pickups into hot commodities. Some buyers paid $10,000 or $20,000 over sticker just to skip the waitlist. The logic was simple: trucks hold their value, and the market always wants more. Paychecks. But as prices soared, paychecks did not keep up. The average American worker's earnings lagged far behind the cost of a new truck. In 2015, a typical full-size pickup cost about $39,000, roughly 70% of the median U.S. household income. By 2024, the price had climbed to nearly 100% of that same income. Even with record-long loan terms, sometimes stretching to 84 months, and aggressive dealer incentives, the math stopped making sense for most families. Monthly payments ballooned, often topping $1,000 even before insurance and maintenance. 1 in 5. The numbers tell a stark story. In 2024, fewer than 1 in 5 new pickups sold for under $50,000. Entry-level trims became scarce, while luxury and off-road packages dominated dealer lots. Automakers chased profit margins, but left behind a growing share of buyers. The result was a market built on fragile ground, a world where a single missed paycheck or a dip in overtime hours could turn a new truck from a badge of honor into a financial trap. Drifted. As the gulf between sticker prices and wages widened, the pressure began to show. Dealers watched as trucks lingered unsold, buyers hesitated, and the once reliable stream of trade-ins slowed to a trickle. The promise that a pickup was a safe investment started to crack under the weight of reality. Numbers that once seemed abstract, $62,869 for a new truck, $80,000 for a top trim, became hard limits for families already stretched thin. The American pickup, once a symbol of upward mobility, now stood as proof of how far the dream had drifted from reach. Dealerships across the Midwest stare down rows of unsold trucks, each one quietly draining their bottom line. Every day, a $50,000 pickup sits on the lot. It racks up $27 in carrying costs, interest, insurance, and the slow bleed of depreciation. For a dealer holding 50 trucks, that is $1,400 a day, every day, just to keep them parked. As weeks turn into months, the math gets ugly. Trucks that linger past 120 days become liabilities, not assets. Floor plan financing, the backbone of dealer inventory, turns from a tool to a trap. At 8% interest, the cost of waiting for a retail buyer can eat through any hope of profit. One dealer, speaking on condition of anonymity, breaks it down. The dealer says, "You see those platinum F-150s? If they sit here 4 months, we are losing money every day. The factory gives us a $7,500 bonus to move them, but that is just to cover the hole we are digging. We will knock $12,000 off the price, take the bonus, and still walk away with nothing." Manufacturers know the pain points. Ford, General Motors, and Ram dangle hidden incentives: dealer cash, pull-ahead programs, and early holdbacks, quietly encouraging dealers to clear out stock without making public price cuts. Officially, the window sticker stays high, but behind closed doors, the real price plummets. In December, Ford Motor Credit sent out pull-ahead emails: move those high-trim F-150s by year-end, get $2,000 to $7,500 extra per truck. The public never sees these numbers, but dealers do. The Midwest dealer calls it house money. Sell to a wholesaler, dump it at auction, whatever it takes. Because every day it sits, we lose another $27. Some stores try to shuffle inventory between locations, hoping a different market will bite. Others send trucks to auction, even if it means a $10,000 loss per unit, just to stop the financial bleeding. For rural independents, the strain is worse. Without the bargaining power of big franchise groups, they pay higher insurance and get fewer factory perks. Some pivot to used cars. Others close their new sales divisions entirely, unable to keep up with the relentless cost of unsold trucks. The numbers tell the story. A $50,000 pickup that sits 150 days racks up more than $4,000 in carrying costs alone. By the time it is finally sold, often at a deep discount or dumped at auction, the dealer's last hope is that the manufacturer's bonus will soften the blow. But for many, the damage is already done. The pressure to clear lots builds with every passing day, turning once prized inventory into a race to the bottom. 50K pickups are being dumped for 12K. The market is crashing so hard that trucks worth more than most people's yearly salary are now selling for used car prices. And what's causing this collapse is about to get much worse. At the Mannheim auction in Pennsylvania, the mood was electric and tense. Over 1,200 late-model pickups, mostly 2022 and 2023 Rams, Silverados, and F-150s, lined up bumper to bumper, waiting for the gavel. These were not battered work trucks or high-mileage trade-ins. Most still smelled new, some with plastic on the seats, their original window stickers boasting prices north of $60,000. Dealers from across the region crowded the lanes, scanning run sheets and whispering numbers, hoping for bargains, but bracing for disaster. As the first trucks rolled across the block, the bidding sputtered. A 2022 Ram 1500 Limited, loaded with every option, started at $70,000. No hands went up. The auctioneer dropped the reserve. Bidding limped to $19,000 before the hammer fell. The next truck, a Silverado High Country with fewer than 10,000 miles, sold for $12,000, less than the price of a base model sedan. Each sale sent a fresh wave of disbelief through the crowd. Jay Gallagher, a used car manager from Ohio, shook his head. Prices this week are like nothing I ever seen. It is a bloodbath. Dealers who had once fought over trucks now walked away from the lanes, some leaving before their units even crossed the block. Phones buzzed with texts. Pull your bids. It is a race to the bottom. By midday, GM Financial and Ford Credit slashed reserves on entire rows of inventory, desperate to clear out the flood of repossessed and off-lease trucks. The numbers on the auction board told the story. Trucks that had cost $50,000 or more just a year ago were now fetching $12,000 to $17,000, sometimes even less if there was a flagged odometer or a questionable service history. Volume overwhelmed the system. The auction moved so fast that titles and keys piled up behind the counters. Transporters lined up outside, ready to haul away truckloads of discounted inventory to used lots in other states. Some dealers bought in bulk, gambling that prices could not possibly fall any further. Others refused to touch certain models, especially late-model Rams and Silverados, citing odometer fraud and resale risk. One buyer muttered that you could not pay him to take some of these. For every truck that sold dozens more waited for a second run, the overflow spilled into the next day. By week's end, auction staff estimated more than $50 million in inventory had changed hands at prices that would have been unthinkable just months earlier. The aftermath left dealers and lenders reeling, with losses stretching into the tens of thousands per unit. Gallagher summed it up, his voice low. If you are holding floor plan on these, you are already dead. The banks just do not know it yet. Shauna Lee's nights start just after sunset, engine idling outside a row of brick apartments on Atlanta's south side. She keeps the radio low, paperwork in the passenger seat, and her eyes on the street. The job is simple in theory. Find the truck, hook it up, tow it away. But nothing about these nights feels routine anymore. 15 pickups in a single shift is common now, sometimes more. Ford F-150s, Silverados, Rams, most less than 2 years old, still carrying the scent of new leather and the pride of an owner who thought the payments would always make sense. Shauna's list is filled with names she recognizes from the week before. construction foremen, HVAC techs, small business owners, people who used to wave when she drove by, now peering through blinds or standing in the driveway, arms folded. Each repo is a story cut short. Some owners plead for another week or offer cash on the spot. Others curse, slam doors, or threaten to call the police. Shauna keeps her window up, voice steady. It's all pickups, guys who work construction, HVAC, little business owners. They're angry, scared. Some cry, some pull a gun. She calls for an escort in certain neighborhoods after a close call last winter left her rattled for weeks. Most nights I feel terrible, but I got my job too. Some weeks we repo a dozen from the same apartment complex. The numbers behind her work are staggering. In 2024, repossessions in Atlanta jumped 175% year over year. Subprime auto loan delinquencies passed 5.5% nationwide, and repo agencies like Shauna's doubled their crews just to keep up. Her company used to handle mostly beat-up sedans or the odd family SUV. Now, it's high-dollar trucks, vehicles that cost more than most people's annual income, lined up in holding lots before heading to auction. Shauna tries not to dwell on the aftermath. She's seen grown men break down, kids watching from the porch as their dad's truck disappears into the night. Sometimes she finds work boots on the floorboard, hard hats in the back seat, business cards tucked in the visor. These aren't just vehicles. They're the backbone of a trade, a family's livelihood, sometimes the last thing standing between stability and a freefall. One night, as she backed up to a gleaming Ram 1500, the owner stepped outside, hands raised. "I just need it for one more day," he said, voice shaking. Shauna shook her head, apologizing, knowing the lender's clock doesn't stop for anyone. She loaded the truck in silence, the man watching until the taillights disappeared around the corner. For Shauna, the work is steady, but the mood has changed. There's a raw edge to every interaction, a sense that the system is chewing through people faster than anyone can keep up. Trucks that once meant pride and promise now sit behind fences, waiting for a buyer who may never come. The numbers keep climbing. 15, 16, sometimes 20 trucks a night. Each one a reminder that the crisis isn't just about money. It's about what happens to the people left behind. September 2025 brought the kind of headline that sends a chill through Wall Street. Tricolor, one of the country's largest subprime auto lenders, filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy. The collapse didn't just strand tens of thousands of borrowers. It set off a chain reaction that rippled through every corner of the truck market. Within days, asset-backed securities tied to Tricolor's loans crashed to just 12 cents on the dollar. Investors who believed they held safe, diversified bundles of pickup truck loans suddenly faced staggering losses. The trustee overseeing these securities froze all interest payments, leaving pension funds, regional banks, and hedge funds facing write-downs they never saw coming. Behind the scenes, the numbers told a story of unchecked risk. Subprime auto delinquencies had already passed 5.5% nationwide, the highest since the Great Recession. In Tricolor's own portfolios, default rates spiked well into double digits. The company's warehouse lenders, big names like Triumph Financial and Fifth Third, discovered that the same pools of loans had been pledged as collateral more than once. This double pledging meant that when the music stopped, nobody knew who actually owned the underlying trucks. The Department of Justice and SEC launched parallel investigations, combing through court dockets and trustee reports for evidence of fraud and misrepresentation. The collapse of Tricolor's loan servicing triggered chaos for everyone holding the bag. With collections frozen by the bankruptcy court, repossessions ground to a halt. Dealers and repo agents found themselves locked out of recovery lots, unable to move or sell thousands of trucks, now technically in legal limbo. At the same time, rival lenders began dumping repossessed trucks at auction, desperate to salvage whatever cash they could before values cratered further. The sudden spike in supply hit just as demand evaporated, sending auction prices into freefall. Some asset-backed securities, once rated investment grade, lost nearly 90% of their value in a matter of weeks. For investors, the damage was swift and unforgiving. Junior tranches of pickup-backed ABS, which had traded at par just months before, now changed hands for pennies. Major banks disclosed losses in the hundreds of millions. Warehouse lenders, left with piles of bad debt and no clear collateral, pulled back on new originations, tightening credit across the entire subprime market. The aftershocks spread to every dealership floor plan, every overflow lot, every family still making payments on a truck, now worth less than half its loan balance. The anatomy of the collapse was laid bare in bankruptcy filings and investor calls. Tricolor's model relied on rapid loan originations to low credit and no credit buyers, many of them working-class families in Texas and California. These loans were packaged and sold as securities, sliced into tranches, and passed on to investors hungry for yield. When defaults spiked and the fraud surfaced, the entire structure came apart. Servicing gaps left thousands of trucks stranded, titles tangled in legal disputes, and recovery efforts paralyzed by court orders. By late September 2025, the used truck market was flooded with inventory from failed lenders. Prices at auction reflected the panic. Late-model pickups, once the pride of American driveways, now sold for less than the cost of a decade-old sedan. The value crater was no longer just a story about unlucky owners or desperate dealers. It was a contagion, spreading through financial markets, dealership networks, and the balance sheets of banks and investors alike. The promise of bulletproof truck values had been exposed as an illusion, swept away in a matter of months by a perfect storm of defaults, fraud, and financial engineering gone wrong. Residual value used to be a promise. Buy the right truck, keep up with the payments, and you would always have something worth trading in or selling. But now that promise is fractured. In 2025, the difference between winners and losers is wider than ever. Toyota's Tundra, for example, is holding strong. After 5 years, it still keeps about 62% of its value. The Detroit 3 cannot say the same. The Ford F-150, Chevy Silverado, and Ram 1500 are all scraping the low to mid 30% range. For some late-model Rams, the number is even lower, especially if there is a whiff of odometer trouble or a flagged Carfax. Dealers do not want them. Buyers are wary. The trucks that once ruled the road now linger on lots, their price tags slashed, their value draining away by the week. Incentives are the quiet engine behind the collapse. Ray Shefska, an industry analyst and co-founder of CarEdge, has watched this play out in real time. He says manufacturers do not like to lower manufacturer-suggested retail prices. What automakers are more than willing to do is increase incentives. That is exactly what he expects to see in 2025. Official prices stay high for the headlines, but behind the scenes, cash incentives and hidden rebates pile up. Dealers get $7,000 or more per truck just to clear the lot. The result? Trucks that were unaffordable at $70,000 become tempting at $48,000, until you realize the bottom might not be in yet. By the time the discounts hit the used market, it is a race to the floor. Reliability is the dividing line between winners and losers. These residual gaps are not just numbers on a spreadsheet. They decide who gets burned and who escapes. If you are holding a Tundra, you might breathe easy. If you are underwater on a Ram or Silverado, every month brings more risk. Black Book analysts point to reliability as the dividing line. Tundras, with their bulletproof repair records and loyal base, are still in demand, even as the rest of the market sours. Fleet trucks from Detroit? Dealers walk away, citing too many unknowns, electronic glitches, odometer scandals, and the sheer volume of units dumped at auction. Depreciation is no longer a slow trickle. The glut is not going away soon. Forecasts say the oversupply could last through 2026. That means years of pressure on prices, with new incentives layered on top of old inventory. For buyers, it is a minefield. The deal that looks unbeatable today might be a trap tomorrow. For owners, the risk is clear. Depreciation is no longer a slow drip, but a tidal wave. Trucks that once felt like a safe bet now come with a warning label, especially if you are not holding the right keys. Be picky, he warns. Ray Shefska puts it plainly. Incentives will go up, but the real risk is for anyone who thinks this market will bounce back quickly. If you are buying, be picky. If you are selling, brace yourself. The lesson is simple, but hard to swallow. In a market where the rules have changed overnight, value is no longer guaranteed. The gap between winners and losers is measured not in dollars, but in the difference between a truck that holds its ground and one that is dumped for pennies on the dollar. Right now, thousands of nearly new pickups sit idle, their value erased overnight, not by technology, but by financial fallout. As repossession rates soar and lenders retreat, the American truck market reveals a deeper fracture. When debt outpaces reality, even icons can tumble. This is more than cheap trucks. It's a warning. The next crash may not just empty lots. It could reshape how we measure value, risk, and trust in what we drive next.